So we made it to the finish line. Today we're talking about the season 2 finale of Castle Rock. Do they answer the questions about the kid? What did I think about the episode? What did I think of the season 2 as a whole? And what am I hoping to see in season 3? Well, we're going to talk about that and much more. What's going on, everybody? Elliot back again with my final season 2 recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode. Episode 10 was titled Clean, the opposite of joy. I am beyond excited to talk about today's season finale with you all and talk about my pros and cons of the episode, this season, what I'm hoping to see in the future. But before we dive into that spoiler discussion, definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that bell so you can stay up to date with all my other TV reviews, movie reviews, and all the fun things we do on this very channel. And also, before I forget, stick around to the end of this video because I have a giveaway currently going on our channel for It Chapter 2. Very fitting for a Stephen King show, so we'll talk about that in the video. But also, I want to know your comments in the comments below. Did this finale live up to your expectations? Did you like this season? What didn't you like about it? Let's have some fun discussions in the comments below. So let's just jump right into it, right? Let's talk about season 2's finale, episode 10, Clean. So first and foremost, I'm going to say it up front. There were some things I did not like about this season finale, and there were some things I absolutely love. And we're going to talk about it right now. So we immediately pick up from last week's episode where we see Ace picking up the body of Pop after he was shot in the head. And if you guys remember my review from last week, I had pointed out, and some of you all had noticed it as well, that Pop had injected himself with the medicine so he can kind of be himself at the same time be taken over by Ace and the French people. But we see him being taken to the Marston house, and he's put into the casket. And we see that transformation being occurring to Pop. But again, we all know that that was going to be kind of the twist once we saw him injected himself from last week. We see Joy is preparing to become Amity. She gives... We're hearing Ace give a speech about the Angel and Amity returning and taking back the land and using the town people as their army. We see the remaining crew of Abdi, Nadia, Chance, and Annie coming up with a plan to save Joy, to save the people. And also they're coming up, you know, Annie is telling them, hey, I got to save Joy. You guys got to wait before whatever plan we make of blowing this place up. I got to save my daughter. And, you know, they're preparing for if they don't return. We see Abdi and his sister talking about, well, if they don't come back, we got to just do what we got to do. So we see all that happen. We see Pop is now arisen as this new follower, and he's talking to Ace about the kid and the sound, the schism, I believe is what he called it, and we know that's from season 1. And I was hoping to get a little bit more explanation, and we'll talk about that later on as far as my cons, but he says, you know, about the sound, and that the lake is a portal of such that we see the kid or the kid or the angel uses this portal to travel through time at his own will and then travel through different dimensions, which answers some questions about the kid about, you know, season 1, how he was able to go from here to there and transport to different dimensions. He's using this lake, and I think they might have touched on that in season 1. Again, if you all remember my very first review for this very season, I had mentioned I'm not the biggest fan of season 1. It was some things I liked and some other things I didn't like, but I don't remember a lot of it because it was just not, it fell apart for me in that second half. But anyway, we find out about the lake, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, they may have mentioned that in season 1, but I think that might have been a big reveal in this episode. But anyway, as I digress, we see the group kind of split up with the, you know, Abdi and Nadia going underground and setting up the bombs under the house and under the statue. And we see Annie and Chance going through the people. And Annie, you know, tells Chance, or Chance tells Annie everything's fine. And she's kind of walking through the crowd. And one of her friends sees her, and we see her friend from earlier in the season. She just points at her and says, no. And then everyone else starts saying no. And I'm not going to lie, that moment was kind of funny because Chance was like, no, she's trying to point it to her. But we see the cop take Chance and goes in the house. From there, they take her to Ace, and we see Annie banging on the door, being Annie, right? Being kind of crazy and spoiling the plans, letting them know who's in the tunnel and what they're going to do. So Ace tells his goons or his followers to go down there, and Pop says, hey, I'll go down there too. And we see Ace give him the gun. They go in the tunnels, they go in the basement, and again, it was very predictable. As like I said, if you had caught last week's episode, you saw that he shot himself with the medicine. He was going to turn, and sure enough, he did. He killed the followers and told them about what he told Ace and how he was, fed him information for he can trust him, this, that, and the other. And again, Pop is telling him we got to hurry before the angel comes. So they have that warning, and we see Pop there, and we obviously again very predictable. I think it was kind of told us at that point that Pop was going to sacrifice himself, but very predictable there. But we see the kid. on the mountaintop, and I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna maybe answer some questions. We're gonna get a somewhat of a exposition, maybe, but we just see the kids sitting on the mountain there. Annie is being kept alive. I don't know why they didn't kill Annie at that point. I'm glad they didn't, but I'm just thinking in my head, Annie should be dead. They don't need her at this point. But anyway, Pop tries to fight off the Frenchman and gets Chance. He gets her out of the house. They set off the dynamite. We see the town people is now broken out of this trance. We see Joy stabs Ace in the back or the side or the stomach. And it looks like Annie, she finds her. She finds Joy, and Joy is kind of in this still kind of in this trance. And I'm thinking in my head, did that transformation take place with her and Amity? Is Amity somewhat still in her? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but we see Pop tells Nadia to blow up the house, which she does. They have a little moment there. Annie finds her. Like I said, she finds Joy in the crowd, and we see, the house blow up. The crowd is going wild. Everyone's running around. We see the kid sees the explosive from the distance, and he just walks away and disappears. And assuming he's going into another timeline, maybe he's going into our season 3 setup, which we'll talk about at the end. He's going to a new dimension. So we see all that happen, and that's kind of the first 20 minutes of the episode. That stuff I didn't like at all, because it just felt like just, again, kind of what I mentioned last week. We're getting all this explosiveness in the Home Alone edition of last week's episode, and that continues to go on in this episode. And it just felt so jarring to me because we didn't get any of that prior to these last 2 episodes, and it's just like all this action stuff just feels so, it undercuts all the character development in my eyes. So that first half of the episode, I could have went without it because, number one, it didn't give us much of anything about the kid, except for the lake. Again, if they mentioned that in season 1, it went past me and I don't remember it. I have amnesia about season 1 because I did not like it that much. But we see, we get that information about the lake maybe being a big plot device in season 3 and him traveling through dimensions. But we don't learn much about the kid. Literally, the Pop, Nadia, and Abdi stuff was just nothing, because we didn't get any follow-up whatsoever. Again, I know they haven't announced a season 3, and I'll talk about season 3 a little bit later, but I just want to bring it up now. If they come back, maybe they'll give them some more backstory, but if not, it was kind of just a waste of time. I was really invested in the Pop storyline, the D, but once Nadia found out about what Pop did to his mom and Abdi knew about it, that was kind of the last thing that I had interest in that particular storyline. The whole thing with Nadia and Chris, I didn't care for that. When Ace and Pop had their conversation over the walkie-talkie last week, that didn't hit me at all emotionally. And then literally, I have mentioned it maybe a couple times in my review so far, Abdi literally got no storyline. He was just, they gave him a little bit of stuff, but literally after the house was blown up, we haven't gotten much of anything. He was literally a wasted character. He did some things. He saved them last week. Yes, I get it. And yes, I get the overall theme that if it wasn't for Pop and Nadia and Abdi, they would have never got away. And I'm speaking to Annie and Joy. Everyone Amity would have came, the angel would have came, and they saved the day. Yes, I get it. It's a plot device. But outside of that, I feel like everything else was wasted because we got no finish up or no resolution or what next for them after everything happened. So I did not like the first half. And let's go into the thing I loved about this episode and ultimately what I loved about the show, and that is the central storyline of a mother and her daughter relationship. We see that with Annie and her mom when she was growing up, and we see that now with Annie, or technically her sister, Annie and Joy. But that is easily the saving grace of not only this episode, but the season. And just from Annie's storyline alone, that's why I personally like this season, because everything from Lizzy and seeing her relationship with her mom and her parent. Again, the best episode to me was episode 5, The Laughing Place. I thought that was like excellent television. So well written. I love the actress that played young Annie. I loved her dad. I loved Rita. I loved her mom and that stuff. That episode was just flawless in my opinion. And that's what we really got in this second half. So as we transition, we see Annie and Joy driving out of the town. We see that we get a text that it's 1 week later. We see Annie wakes up Joy as she's crying, which again, this is all the second half of the episode. And this is the stuff I just gobbled up and love. We see Annie picks up a book titled Misery's Quest, written by the great Paul from the Misery movie. That was just An amazing moment there, and Annie reads to Joy, which I was, I remember as she's reading to Joy, I kind of go back to my laughing place, my favorite episode. I'm like, oh, she can read now, and I just had a little moment there. But anyway, I still thinking in my head, what's wrong with Joy? Obviously, she just went through a traumatic event, but I'm like, is Amity somewhat in Joy? And they drop little hints in the episode as the episode progresses, but we see Annie continues to read the book. We see a montage of Annie just being so engrossed in this book and just falling in love with Paul and falling in love with his narrative and kind of reminding her of her dad maybe. So, and we'll talk about that later. But we see Annie and Joy drive to Canada. They go to Canada. They go to the border, and I assume they have new identities because they slide through no problems. Annie wants to talk to Joy, but Joy is not talking to her. We see Joy laughing in a gas station with the clerk. But mind you, I don't know if you guys noticed, but right behind Annie, there was a missing person sign, and that missing person was no other than Henry Devers. I love that callback there. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't remember much of season 1. Why would his missing sign be all the way in Canada? I don't remember him being placed in Canada in season 1. Let me know in the comments if I'm remembering that right. But I thought that was very interesting that I don't remember him missing either from season 1. So I thought that was a nice little Easter egg and maybe leads and sets the stone for season 3, where we get some characters from season 1 and season 2 maybe coming together. Who knows? But we see, Annie, she pulls a for help sign for a caretaker. We see Annie and Joy, she's continuing to read the book of Misery's Quest. We see that they take the job, and she takes the job and everything, and she sees Annie, looks out the window, sees Joy at the lake there, and they have a little bit of conversation there or whatever. But we see Annie just continue to try to talk to Joy, and Joy is just kind of pushing her off. And again, I'm just thinking in my head, there's something wrong with her. There's something wrong with her. So we see, and this is a really big moment for me, we see Annie sees Joy watching this show that's all in French. And I'm just like, she doesn't speak French. But Amity speaks French, so I'm like, Amity's in her. She's in her now. She's going to have to kill her. A lot of you guys have been making theories that Annie's going to end up killing Joy because Amity's in her. And we get a little twist on that. We'll talk about that here in a bit. But she shuts off the television. Annie reads her book and notices, the phone. Someone's on the phone, and we hear Joy saying to someone, and the man says, hey, we got to meet tomorrow, whatnot. And Joy denies that she was on the phone. And we still see that Annie is having these visions and having the voice of her mother saying, you got to clean your daughter. You got to get rid of her, a.k.a. kill her. So Annie confronts Joy about what happened. Annie doesn't want to talk about it. She runs away. Joy goes through her stuff and finds a drawing of the kid and the angel. That might have been hallucination. It might not have been what Annie actually saw in that book. We'll talk about that later. But Annie crushes up the pills, some pills, and puts it in ice cream. And wait for it. What does she use to put the ice cream in? An ice cream scooper, which is a great callback to when she killed Ace earlier in the season. So Annie and Joy are talking. She's eating ice cream, and Annie's being all awkward and weird and be like, hey, do you like your ice cream? And Joy's like, yeah, I guess, but it tastes a little weird. And they have a little fight. We see the fight kind of go. Annie's like pushing her on the couch and force feeding her the ice cream. We see Joy grab a pin and stab her in the back. They run out to the lake, and we see them fighting at the lake, and ultimately we see, this is kind of ironic, we see Annie drowning her in the lake, which calls back to when Annie had Joy as a little girl. She was going to drown her when she was a baby. So ultimately we see Annie is drowning her, and she goes away. She leaves her body in the water. We see Annie go back in the house and just kind of looking at the couch, sitting down, and she notices something on the floor. She noticed a letter. And this is the point where like I said, everything with Annie and Joy was so well done, because at the end of the day, it wasn't about the kid. It wasn't about the body snatchers. It wasn't about the Marston house. It was a story about a mother and a daughter. So she reads the letter to her, and I'm not going to read verbatim, but essentially the letter was just saying that Joy needs to find herself. She was in a state of shock. She just went through this crazy thing, and she wanted to find herself. She said that she was talking to a lawyer on the phone, like Chance did, to clear her name and start something new. And ultimately, she might have came back to her mother, but she didn't. She just needed some time away from her mom and Rita and all that stuff to find herself. That was a very heartwarming moment to me, because it's just like, she wasn't Amity. She was just a kid that just went through a lot of stuff. Just found out that her mom was her sister, that her mom that she didn't know of was alive. She ended up killing her mom. I mean, it was a lot that Annie or Joy that went through, and it's completely understandable why she was acting the way she was. We see Annie run out to the lake, perform CPR, try to save her daughter, and you think she saves her. And we see this montage of them getting ice cream together. going out to a book signing by Paul, and we see Paul from the neck down. We don't see his face, in the shot there, and we see Annie's mom in the crowd and her dad in the crowd. And the guy walks up to Annie and says, "Hey, can I sit here? Is the seat taken?" She says, "Yes. Don't you see my daughter here?" And as the camera pans out, there's no one there, and that's the beginnings of Annie becoming the Annie that we know in Misery. That was a beautiful moment because, again, I mean, it obviously tells you that Annie killed Joy, and she's on the run now, and this is a perfect origin story for her. So, again, all that stuff in the second half was fantastic. This was, and I'm going to transition. So I didn't like the first half. I liked the second half, and that really kind of sums up my idea of the second season of Castle Rock. I enjoyed it much more than I did the first season, without a doubt. But the thing that saved this season for me personally was everything that we got with Annie and Joy. Again, this was a story about a daughter and her mother and mental health and how you deal with that and how others deal with it. And I thought that the performance, the MVP of the season, without a doubt, I'll give my props to Tim Robbins, who did a great job as Pop. Outside of that, Annie killed it. And also the young actress, I can't think of her name right now, Elsie Fisher, I believe her name is, from 8th grade. I thought she was great in that movie, but she was great in this show as well as Joy. But Annie, Lizzy Caplan, killed the role. She was the best part of the show. I loved her performance. I know we probably won't see her again if they have a season 3 or season 4, but I hope we do because she was phenomenal. And again, I think that the show brought in that kid element and it really didn't need to be in the show because it really didn't have a payoff to it. I kind of felt that the Pop storyline was kind of underwhelming with his kids. Once Nadia found out the truth, I thought that was like the last of their storyline, and the rest of the stuff was just kind of filler and just a lot of fluff. But again, the highlight of the season for me was by far everything that we got with Annie and Joy, and I thought that stuff was beautiful, and that ending was tragic. So that's just my thoughts on the episode, my thoughts on the season. Again, 50-50 on the episode, but I really enjoyed the season just based on everything with Annie and Joy alone. So with that being said, this is your moment to shine, guys. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the season finale, what you thought about the season. And as far as my thoughts on season 3, I would love to see what they did at the end of season 1, which is have the young girl driving out to the Overlook Hotel and having some shining stuff going on. I would love to see maybe they combine season 1 characters with season 2 and we get some, a wrap up with the kid and kind of understand what's going on there and him traveling through dimensions and his backstory. I would love to get that. So let me know what you all would like to see in season 3. And again, share your thoughts on what you thought of the finale. Was it satisfying? Let me know your all's thoughts on the episode and everything you thought about the episode. Let me know your pros and cons about everything we talked about in this video. So as I had mentioned up top, very fitting that Stephen King, It Chapter 2 came out today as the season finale of Castle Rock in it. So right now I'm doing a giveaway for this. I'm going to be giving away over the weekend the digital code. So I'm going to click that button on the screen here so you can watch that video and find out how you can win the code for It Chapter 2. And also for those fans of Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out today. So I'm giving away that code as well. So there you have it, guys. I enjoy season 2 of Castle Rock much more than I did in season 2 or season 1. But again, if it wasn't for Annie and Joy, this season would have been a letdown. But with that amazing performance by Lizzy and Tim and Elsie, I thought that they really carried the season because everything else was just kind of an underwhelming storyline. It really didn't have a wrap up for me personally. But thank you all for watching all my reviews for season 2 of Castle Rock. I will not be stopping my reviews for other things I watch. I watch other shows, so definitely keep an eye out for those reviews. I watch movies. I do other things on this channel, like giveaways like I'm doing today. So definitely keep an eye out for some more content, and I'm hoping that they do announce a season 3 and we get some cool stuff with future seasons of Castle Rock. So like and share this video. Again, comment below, subscribe to my channel, hit that bell, stay up to date with my latest videos. Again, I can't thank you all enough for everyone that's been with my reviews of Castle Rock from episode 1 to episode 10. I can't thank you all enough for the amazing comments, the theories, the fun conversations we had, the likes, the shares, and everything. I really appreciate it, guys. And like I said, I'm not stopping here. I still got plenty of reviews, other shows that I watch, so definitely keep an eye out for that. So again, thank you all for tuning in week to week to week. I got another season finale with Watchmen on Sunday. So let me know in the comments what shows I should be watching once after this show ends and Watchmen ends on Sunday. But again, thank you all for watching this review, and we'll see you on the next video.